Yesterday I met some Bernie or bust people who say that they're going to support you. Why do you think more Bernie Sanders supporters should consider you?
Because they have worked so hard to create a transformation of the political landscape, and our campaign allows them to continue that work. There is every reason in the world for them to build on the remarkable accomplishments of the past year. Hillary Clinton's campaign represents the opposite of everything they have been working towards. A candidate who has long been the advocate for the big banks, for the fossil fuel giants, for the war profiteers, and for the health insurance industry. Hillary Clinton has stood in the way of the critical things that the Sanders campaign is supporting and that the American people are clamoring for. That is an economy that works for all of us, with living wages and good quality jobs, an environment that we can survive in, as opposed to the future of fracking, which Hillary Clinton has been a major proponent of. Healthcare is a human right through a Medicare for All system. Again, Hillary has stood in the way of that, saying that it's not a good system. It's problematic. It will undo the progress of the Affordable Care Act, which is absolutely not true. And the wars that Hillary has plunged headlong into with all the support that she has received from the weapons industry. So our campaign is Plan B for Bernie. We've been joined at the hip since the beginning by our supporters who've really been straddling both camps, waiting to see how the situation unfolded. And it unfolded in exactly the way that those who've been watching this for a while knew that it would. The Democratic Party sabotaged Bernie's campaign, as many suspected it would, and as has been revealed in the email leak. So we are finding just an incredible reception out there, both inside the DNC and outside of the DNC among the Sanders supporters.
You told NPR, I think a couple days ago, that the scary things, the horrific things that Donald Trump says, Hillary Clinton has already done. Could we kind of get into specifics on that?
Sure.
What were you talking about?
So, you know, Donald Trump is overtly racist and xenophobic, and it's horrifying to hear, and it's despicable.
And Hillary Clinton, you can't.
She doesn't say that.
She couldn't really be compared to those, you know,
in terms
banning
of her,
an entire religion. That
in
kind
terms of her rhetoric, but she bombs. You know, over 1 million people have been killed in Iraq, a war that Hillary Clinton plunged headlong into. Hillary Clinton led the charge into Libya. So, you know, there are millions of black and brown people and Muslim people who have been devastated by Hillary Clinton's policies, in which she has led the charge. So Trump says, Hillary Clinton does. On immigrants, Hillary Clinton instigated many of the refugees who are fleeing from Honduras, where Hillary Clinton gave the thumbs up to a horrific corporate coup that has ushered in years of terrible violence, from which tens of thousands of people are fleeing as refugees. And Hillary Clinton has basically said, bar the gates, don't let them in. It's as bad as deporting refugees. And in fact, she has not stood in the way and has encouraged this policy of deportation and the night raids of women and children who are escaping the violence. I find that absolutely horrific. And it's not fair to just look at the words of Donald Trump without looking at the actions and the consequences of policies that Hillary Clinton has led, including the dismantling of the safety net for women and children, aid to families with dependent children, which has thrown millions more children into poverty. So Hillary Clinton claims to be the advocate for children, but she's not. Donald Trump is a reprehensible demagogue who should not be elected. But the only way to really fight that kind of right-wing extremism is with a true, progressive, people-powered policy, truly revolutionary policies that Bernie Sanders represented. The Democrats shafted, sabotaged his campaign, which would have been the most effective way to stop Donald Trump. So, you know, if Donald Trump gets elected, we have Hillary Clinton and the DNC to thank for that. What we need to do at this point is continue that agenda that Bernie Sanders lifted up, which is the only way to not only fight Donald Trump, because the problem is much bigger than Trump, virtually all of the Republican presidential candidates had a very similar agenda. The same thing is happening in Europe, where there's a rise of right-wing extremism. That cannot be blamed on Donald Trump. The problem here is the policies of neoliberalism, big fancy word, but it's basically what the Clintons have been promoting. In this country in particular, it's NAFTA and corporate trade agreements, and it is the deregulation of Wall Street and the triumph of banks. Bankers and billionaires are making out like bandits, while everyday people are being thrown under the bus. They are upset about it, and they become vulnerable to demagoguery. So the only way to fight this, Hillary Clinton is the problem, part of the problem here. Putting her in the White House, like putting Trump in the White House, is only going to fan the flames of right-wing extremism. We truly need transformative, radical, progressive change.
People have told me that a vote for you is throwing away a vote, or a vote for you is a vote for Donald Trump. What do you think a vote for you actually is?
So when people say that I would be taking votes away from Hillary, they're kind of buying this new propaganda that politicians, establishment politicians, have a new kind of entitlement. They are entitled to our votes. They're entitled to our support. They have to earn it. Hillary doesn't have it. Neither does Donald Trump. These two are the most disliked, most distrusted, most rejected candidates throughout the history of presidential elections. And yet we have these political pundits and party operatives who are telling the American people to be good little boys and girls and don't dare depart from the political parties who are throwing you under the bus. You know, this is just raw propaganda. We are in a unique moment right now in history. The American people are clamoring for something else, for an honest broker, for a candidate who is not held hostage by corporate money, by lobbyists, and by super PACs. Bernie Sanders and I had that in common. He's been sabotaged by the DNC. Now I am the only public interest player, public interest advocate, uncorrupted candidate that's left standing, that's not taking that money. This is exactly what the American people are clamoring for. People are told to vote against your fears rather than for what you believe. Following that policy has delivered everything we were afraid of. All the reasons people were told to vote for the lesser evil. It has a track record. We didn't want the expanding wars, which, by the way, are half of your income tax is paying for these wars that are creating more crisis, that are creating mass refugees, failed states, and worse terrorist threats. That's half of your income tax. It's half of our discretionary budget. So, you know, we shouldn't be forced down that path. That is what this political system is giving us. We were told vote for the lesser evil so you wouldn't get, you know, the expansion and the stranglehold of Wall Street. That's exactly what we got. The first thing Barack Obama did was appoint Larry Summers, the architect of the Wall Street meltdown. And then he bailed out Wall Street. We need to be bailing out the students, the young people who are the victims of that waste, fraud, and abuse on Wall Street. You won't hear that from the establishment parties. On the power of the millennial vote alone, objecting to this crisis of student debt, advocating for a bailout, on that power alone, we actually can win this election. 42 million people locked in debt is a winning plurality of the vote. So reject this propaganda of powerlessness. They want to convince you you are powerless because they are quaking in their boots. What happens if word gets out and millennials tell friends, don't stay home? Friends don't let friends stay home in debt on the election day of 2016 because we can come out, take over that election, cancel the debt, make public higher education free, create an emergency jobs program that solves the emergency of climate change, and a foreign policy based on international law and human rights. We can have an America and a world that works for all of us. That won't come from the political parties that are funded by the predatory banks and the war profiteers. We are the ones we've been waiting for. Reject the lesser evil, fight for the greater good, like our lives depend on it, because they do.
I've talked to Gary Johnson about you guys' lawsuit trying to get into the debates. So I was wondering, what would that mean for your campaign to be on the debate stage?
You know, I think what's important is what it means for the American people. The American people actually get to hear other choices, which is exactly what they are clamoring for. I have no doubt what it means, because our campaign has come up in the polls from basically not registering at all in the polls to as high as 7% in a recent CNN poll. We're running basically between 5 and 7 without coverage by the corporate media at all. So the public is basically flying blind here, clamoring for something else. They need to know what their other options are, and I think we should stand up and demand that. I encourage people to go to my website, jill2016.com, and join our campaign to open up the debates.